All right, we are back. We are live on another episode of Coach's Corner. We are here to talk about current events and the realities of this industry. I legitimately am so excited to talk with my guests today because not everybody kind of just starts over and gets into freight in the middle of a pandemic and comes in and does all that. But before I introduce my guests here, I got to give a shout out to my friends over at BitFreighter. They're the preferred EDI partner here at the Freight Coach. The guys at BitFreighter are on a mission to connect the logistics industry with a flat fee for unlimited EDI messaging. Carriers and owner-operators alike, you're costing yourself business by not having a digital option to accept tenders from your customers. With the Load Accept platform, EDI is no longer an expensive and unattainable option for companies who may not have a legacy TMS to utilize for their day-to-day operations. Load Accept levels the playing field for your organization and makes you EDI compliant with your customers through automation. If your customers are requiring you to have EDI capabilities, you now have a seamless and effective tool to utilize in Load Accept. Are you ready to learn more? Visit www.bitfreighter.com to request a Load Accept demo today. Just do me a favor, let them know that the Freight Coach sent you. You guys are all phenomenal. The amount of support that you guys show, all of this content, the podcast, this live stream, everything else, I love every second of it. I appreciate you guys all so much. And, it is just my absolute, I love talking about everything trucking. I love talking about the realities of this industry, what people are actually going to face out there, because it's always a great unknown when you're starting off in a new role or a new industry about what the realities of it are. And ironically, I'm in the LinkedIn Accelerator program here, and I'm doing a bunch of content on what I wish I knew when I was back when I started in freight. And ironically, my friend Brian Schnedler here is in his year one, essentially in freight, but not in the industry as a whole. I got to call him what he is. He's a railroad sensei. Brian has a ton of experience on the rail. We connected, I think it was right after New Year's, wasn't it, Brian?
Roughly,
and
yes.
We had a great conversation about that. So Brian, thanks for joining me today and kind of tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Hey, man, first of all, I want to thank you for having me on. I love your show. I watch, the Coach's Corner. I love your podcast. Great insights. You have great guests that offer strategic thoughts and as well. So, yeah, like you mentioned, man, I had an 18-year-long career in the railroad industry. I started off as a conductor, just standing at a switch, basically. Just, they were like, hey, line that switch. We're going to track 1 to 2. And it got into my blood really fast. Became a very passion driven thing because it was like, man, I never played with trains as a kid or nothing. I stand around this equipment and I see it and I was like, okay. And then as I learned how things move in the world and I realized, hey, I'm a part of something bigger than myself. And it just became, such an amazing growth process. I attribute a lot of my like I'm very blessed to be in some of the positions that I've been to. And it's because I came across amazing people throughout my career that have kind of helped guide me along. And as you mentioned, we got into COVID era and all that stuff. And about that same time, I was contracted by a major energy company to handle their operations. They were shutting down the location. So I went to my business partner and I said, man, I'm tired of like doing these things or whatever. And he said, man, let's partner up and let's just get together. He's like, what can we do next? I'm like, freight brokers, why not? Instantly, I realized, you know what? Like, you have got to have some kind of crazy skill set to kind of come into this different world, because I went from being, such a kind of like a sort of Topham hat driven mindset, like, hey, don't cause confusion, don't cause delay. We just got to get this freight going. We got to take care of the customers. We got to make sure this happens. Coming over here, it was a different world, different mindset, different culture. It was something to kind of get used to. But again, like I wanted to be able to come in and make changes to help create a pivot to this growth in the industry. So after seeing that, and I was like, I think there's ways I can, take this and apply it to what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
And try to bring something new to the industry and really it does. I think it's the culture for me that's a little bit different. But I'm a passion person about transportation, period. I know truckers, forklift driver, I don't care. And I think that's we're all in this whole molecular thing, this whole structure. So, coming together, working, it just became something that was very interesting to me. And I got to make a career out of it, man.
No, definitely. What when you got started out, because you're an agent, correct?
Correct.
That's what you're doing right now. because like this is a question I get a lot, because they don't have any experience or like an existing book of business per se. How did you kind of get in with that? Was it the fact that you had so much industry experience just on the rail that they're like, hey, we got to work around for it with that? Or because like, again, a lot of people reach out because a lot of people want to get involved in freight. I always recommend, if you don't have any experience at all, latch on with a broker, learn the industry. If your long-term goal is to own your own brokerage, learn on somebody else's dime if you can, because it's expensive. It's extremely expensive to start up. I know a lot of people out there thinking, like freight brokers just have a laptop and that's it. But the overhead's there. So like, how did you get a start in on the as an agent?
Well, I did have a little bit of a Rolodex that I could play off of. Again, like I said, I'm kind of a networkpreneur in a sense. So I was able to come across certain individuals that were, able to provide that option to come in and learn under somebody else at the same time. And because there is a lot to learn, there is a lot. It's not as easy as it sounds. I mean, like you can get many people on here. I mean, like I work with a high performance logistics coach, man, Dan Deegan. And that dude is fire. You know what I mean? He pushes it. And so like individuals like him, I'm able to come in and get and feed off of that, and have that insight, because that's what you really need. So, I mean, guys like him, yourself, even, I mean, you guys are out here doing this stuff. And if it wasn't for you guys to be able to provide this type of information, I wouldn't even be able to have successful as I am. Was able to reach out on, other networks that I had to draw in to see what was needed here, like what can I do to be a solution provider? That's how I wanted to see myself. And that's what it was. So fortunately, again, it just comes down to who you know. And so
that's true.
I mean, I can't say that I'm successful just because I woke up with a great thought one day. It's because I surround myself with people that are smarter than me, better than me, and they help me reach my goals. So.
Yeah, and I mean that I'm glad you like the networkpreneur thing. I would anybody out there, if you are getting started in business at all, whether you're starting your own company or you're working in a new job or something like that, networking is key. That was my biggest fatal error in my career early on, was I did not network for anything. Everything that ever since I went into business for myself, man, that was my biggest thing, is I need to make sure every single person in transportation knows who Chris Jolly is. Because when you're starting a company, when you're starting in sales, nobody's going to find you. Nobody's going to believe in you. No one's going to, because you haven't given anybody a reason to believe in you. True. But how do you get there? How do you get yourself out there? Is you have to network. You have to get to know people, because here's the thing, in my opinion, there are a lot more people out there who are willing to help you if you're willing to put in the work. You can't just reach out to people and expect them just like, here's a playbook. This is how I found success. Everything else, they don't have time for that. But if you show a willingness to learn and absorb, and it goes a long way. But so many people, I think, are always just looking for that easy route. And that easy route does not exist at all. But, it can be a lot more streamlined when you're out there networking with people, when they can see your passion, when they can see your drive on how you want that to work. So I would highly recommend anybody, if you're on, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook, we're on, YouTube as well, get out there and connect with as many people as possible. Join some of these groups that are on some of these pages. Pay attention on some websites, because some of these groups are not the best information that's out there, but, join some groups on LinkedIn and get in there with a lot of logistics and supply chain professionals and learn the ins and outs of the industry.
No, you're absolutely right. And I totally agree with that, because I think, the thing about it, my thing was really finding mentors. And that's been the most important thing in my career, because again, you find those people who went through the failures and experienced them, and they can tell you and relate to you like, hey, the failures are not the end all be all. It's either going to determine if you're still hungry enough to keep pushing, or you're just going to sit back and accept defeat. And when you get to talk to someone who pushed, past those points and say, hey, guess what? You're going to have crappy days. There's going to be days where you're going to get no all day long. There's going to get, like, for example, this morning, I dealt with a driver that, yesterday, first thing, he was instantly just like, hey, this is not on pallets. It's going to scratch my floor. I want $500.
Yeah.
Why? And then we get him on the road. He gets to where he's going. He's about 2 miles away. Hey, they changed their address. Now they moved like 3 miles away. I want an additional 300. I'm like, what is this, guys? I mean, like, it's just things like that really gets me.
But man, that happens a lot. And I think though, but again, it's when you find yourselves in those situations, I get the whole, hey, this is floor loaded. This is going to rip up my trailer. I understand wanting a little bit of more money for that. And I agree. If the customer told us it was palletized and then all of a sudden it's floor loaded, that does cause some damage to some. Let me rephrase that. Depending on the commodity, if it's floor loaded toilet paper in boxes, like no. But depending upon the commodity, I get it. The change in delivery address. I mean, 3 miles. I don't know about that, especially if you give them ample notification that that's where it is. I mean, if it was an extra 50 miles, 40 miles, yeah, I could see some additional compensation for that. But if we're talking down the street, they haven't already got to that facility. I mean, out of good faith, I might be like, hey, listen, I know it's a change. I'll kick you $50 or something like that. Yeah. But to me, it is, those are scenarios that you're going to find yourself in, Brian, is there's not a playbook for those conversations. Not a lot of people talk about what you just brought up right there. And honestly, that's the whole point in all of my content, is bringing the realities of what these individuals are going to face out there and how to properly handle them. Because again, it's not just like, it's not a carrier's job to pay for the broker's inefficiencies. It's not a broker's job. If you're working with shippers who are constantly changing information, they're constantly changing delivery addresses, commodities, weights, everything else. It's like, it's insane on what is expected out there. But again, if you're a broker, you have to draw your line in the sand, because like, if that's a constant, like, I get it every once in a while. Hey, it was a mistake. It is what it is. Things happen. We move on. That's a partnership. That's business. But I've worked with some shippers where it was like every single load, there was something.
And you just can't operate that way. I mean, you just can't.
You have to have that
line. And again, it takes a lot of value away from our intentions, and that's the thing about it. And that's what I don't want to lose, is because I'm a relationship person, whether it be a carrier or whether it be a shipper, I want long-term, I want something there for the long haul. And and the problem is like, I feel like sometimes what I just, from the outside looking in, I don't feel like the drivers feel like they're included sometimes. And just from your past few shows here, talking about how they're looked down upon sometimes, or they're not treated well, or, and it's kind of a stigma that it just is there for some reason. And I try to express it like, hey, I'm not your typical, guy. I really want to sit here and not make money off of you or anything. Like I said, my passion is to get this product from A to B, to get it to the consumers. And that's what I like to do. Like I said, I like challenges. I like solving problems, but it's like, I'm not here to do that. I want to enhance and encourage and help any individual grow, and whatever I can, lend to them, whether it's experience or whatever, or if I know somebody that knows somebody, I'm here for that reason, And so, like I said, it's just a variability, and it's the root of all evil almost when you get down to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I got to give a shout out to Nerfod. He's in the comments out there. Nerfod, what's going on, man? He was saying that that he's had carriers charge $150 to go to a different dock at the same facility. Again, another reality of it, what's out there. And, hey, if you're out there watching, drop comments in there. We'll answer them as they come, and everything else. And, we're here to talk about the realities of what Brian's faced in year one, and it's scenarios like this, amongst other things, on speaking on that, because again, it's not all sunshine. It's not as easy as what a lot of these internet people like to come out and say, that all you got to do is come through this course. We're going to give you a shipper list, which is garbage. It doesn't mean anything. And that's the thing, is it's like, I think so many people get into this, and when they have that thought process, Brian, like, oh, it's going to be easy. I just got to call these shippers, and then they're going to give me this freight, and then I got to just find a truck for it, and then I'm going to make all this money. That's just not reality at all. And then it's like, I mean, I feel terrible, Brian, because it's like, I talk to a lot of these individuals who go through these freight schools. I talk to a lot of them, because a lot of them come to me and they're like, hey, I paid like $2,000. This individual didn't do anything for me. I don't even have my MC. How do I start? And that's the thing, is it's like, and that's another big driving force behind a lot of the content that I put out there, and the individuals that I surround myself with, is I want people to have a landing page of, how to do it the right way, because this is transportation, brokerage, trucking. This is an extremely lucrative industry if you're going to do it the right way, but again, it's like talking about some of those groups on social media that you get involved in. There's a lot of terrible advice that's out there as well.
Oh, yes.
And, I see some people openly talking about holding loads hostage and everything else and all of this other stuff, which do not do under any circumstances at all. But, that's the thing though, man, is it's like, there's so many little nuances for it. What was the biggest surprise to you out of and that might be hard, and if it's a multi-pronged answer, go for it. But what was the,
like I said, I think the biggest surprise for me was that I felt like there was just an immediate disconnect between, like I said, I mean, I have a son, he's severely autistic. He's non-communicative. So, he's 15 years old. I've had to learn to come from the outside in with this guy. Yeah. And, that was the thing too, is like, ultimately at the end of the day, even though he's not able to communicate certain things to me, he's like anybody else. He wants to be accepted. He wants to be seen, he wants to be, respected too. But, he needs that self-confidence. He needs that self-esteem or, or that pat on the back sometimes like, hey, you're doing a great job. And I think a lot of the problems that I see just coming in was like the praise that is not given to the drivers. I mean, like these guys they're out there, running those damn roads all hours. I mean, doing the best they can. I mean, yeah, they're out there for their families or whatever.
Oh, Brian, I think we're losing you there, bud. You're cutting out a little bit. Hopefully you'll connect back here in a little bit. Yeah, on what you were saying there though, Brian, I mean, it's very true. It's very true about what drivers go through out on the road every single day, and that it's taken for granted that it's just something that is
there we go.
Oh, he's back.
Sorry about that.
Now it's all is it that Oklahoma Wi-Fi or what?
Actually, man, I'm in Kansas. Yeah, I'm in Kansas City, Missouri now, so it's the Missouri Wi-Fi.
That's that Missouri Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding, man. But yeah, what you were saying about the correlation of how you communicate with your son and that acceptance thing and the drivers and everything else is kind of where it started fading out there.
Yeah, like I just kind of feel like that, like at the end of the day, they want to be recognized also, and they want to, because they do a tremendous job. I mean, this is a very hard job, and I know they're out there for their families at the end of the day, but I mean, it's their passion to begin with that got them in this industry and what they want to do. And like I said, when you go in loving something and you're able to wrap your passion around a career, you love your job, you're going to show up every day and want to do it. But I think, over time you get whittled down and you end up liking it. Yeah. And unfortunately for these guys, I mean, they're just not recognized enough. And I don't, like I said, I don't know if it falls into a company culture or whatever it is, but, just either way, it's like, I don't see the respect given enough to those drivers. Like, and I hear, on the last couple of shows that you've had, it's like, they don't get treated very well, and it's unfortunate, but it's like, I think that's kind of that's what bothered me the most, is because I don't like seeing people function like that, because they're not going to be their best. They're going to be like, man, who cares? Like, if they don't care about me, why should I care? And that's what I hear the most and see. And that kind of bothers me. But again, that's what I want to come in and hopefully build back up that culture, just as a whole, somehow, just somehow get it going to where,
I think that there's, this might be an unpopular thing to say, but there's a massive accountability issue in this industry. And like a lot of individuals think that they're not the problem, and it's like, I'm not here to shit on anybody in particular, but we're all contributing factors. Nobody is, nobody is innocent in every single scenario that's out there. And I think that when some of the, because there's some individuals who do, if they work for class organizations who take care of everything, there's not a lot of those. So like they have a hard time putting it into context that style of treatment goes on at other facilities, So for me, it's, but it needs to be addressed. It needs to be talked about because, yeah, you're right. There are, the supply chain, the transportation is a 10,000 piece jigsaw puzzle. But the driver is the one corner piece that puts it all together. Because at the end of the day, yes, I understand we are all an important part of this job. We are all an important part of this industry. But most of us aren't limited in when we can and can't use the bathroom. Most of us aren't limited to food. Most of us are able to get a good night's sleep every night at our house. Not saying that, again, they know the profession that they're getting into, but I think adequate rest is something that would be needed. Not all of us are stuck in traffic or dealing with faulty equipment and everything else. And I understand, again, that's all part of the job, but people need to be open to the fact that it is an extremely stressful job that's out there. The treatment of the majority of the driver community is piss poor. I'll say it for what it is. Do some drivers contribute to that? 1000% they do. Do brokers? Yes. Do shippers? Yes. I mean, I've dealt with a lot of these facilities, and I know what's out there. But I also think that for us to progress and move forward, there has to be some acceptance. There has to be some sort of, all right, we understand that we might need to change, because I think now more than ever, with the progression in social media, with all of these facilities that are out there, if you think you're doing a good job and you're having trouble finding trucks, might want to go onto some of these social media platforms, because you're all over, brokers included. You're all over there on how you're treating drivers and everything else. And that's going to catch up. And I think that's a big miss by a lot of people, is they think like they're immune to that. That's not the case at all. They're building this up. Anybody can see that information now. So, that's one thing that I think, going back, wishing that I knew back in year one, was all of that information that I was just talking about. Like, and I had exposure to that. Like, my dad drove. I have a ton of drivers in my family and everything else. I had an idea. I didn't know how it was, how bad it really was out there, and I witnessed a lot of that stuff, but I was a kid, and I was with my dad. I was a child. I didn't put it into context until I was a little bit older. Before we continue, I got to give some shout outs to the people out there in the comments here. Nosa, what's going on? Angie Carmen, shout out to Josh. I don't know who Josh is, but shout out Josh. John Radvansky.
Oh, my son.
Oh, okay. John Radvansky, what's up, man? Enjoy your call. I appreciate the support. Kathy Smith. Let's see what she said here. I learned what worked best for me dealing with drivers, that I stopped assuming they will do anything out of a signed rate contract for free. And I sympathize with them at first and offer them compensation first, because that's what when they give rates first, it's usually astronomical. Plus, it's always good to build relationships with good carriers and talking to the drivers as I would with customers. Kathy, that is well said. A lot of brokers have a hard time with this. They have a hard time with the fact that their drivers are their customers, even though that they're paying them. But, again, drivers are a direct representation of your organization as a freight broker. And if you piss off a driver and they go in there and they have some choice words with the shipper, I've had that I've had that conversation. That's not an easy one to get around, when they tell you to get that driver out and we don't know if we're going to work with you ever again. That's a direct reflection.
I've heard stories, but I haven't had that experience quite yet. You know what I mean? And going back to strategically aligning myself up, like I hooked up with Kyle Graves over at Synergy Freight. And that guy right there is amazing. If I haven't had somebody like him to come in under and work with, I mean that there again, he's created a culture within our group, man. That's it's an outstanding group of we have an amazing team. And I was so impressed right away. That's what made me, fall in love with the environment there and the teamwork and the effort. And, that's what it should be. And I think with that, that's what I want to kind of reach out and push out. And again, these drivers, they are our customers, and it's all about relationships. And if you are not relationship minded and just you're all about transactional mindset, you're not going to last very long out here. You know what I mean? Because it's tough people last out here, and that's it. And you got to have a community behind you, whether that's just drivers, shippers, whatever. And so whatever community you create within yourself out of your customer base or whatever, you have got to be accountable for that. And you are a contributing factor to that culture environment. And so again, like if a broker or something is, acting like it's just the drivers or this and that, I mean, like, you got to ask yourself at the end of the day, what am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? And where can I improve?
Here's my honest opinion. If you are blaming a driver to your customer, that you are literally saying, I don't know how to source carriers. All right. It's that simple. That's what you're telling them. Indirectly, you might not think that way, but if you're like, oh, this driver's that, you're literally telling your customer, hey, I don't know how to source a truck at all, so I don't know if I should get any more of your freight. It's not the driver, it's my driver. All right. I'm the one who sourced them.
You're responsible for it. Yeah.
And that's exactly it. And that's a big miss by a lot of brokers out there who always try and be like, oh, driver this, driver that. It's like, no, broker. It's your carrier you sourced.
You dirty broker.
Exactly. Drew Pearson, my brother from Canada. What's going on, man? And Cameron, I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher your last name. Pachecki. I'm sorry.
Cameron P.
Cameron P. There we go. We'll get with that. I appreciate you guys all jumping in on the comments here. Brian, how did you land your first customer? I want to know. I'll bring it back. What was it?
I think it was honestly by mistake. He might. I don't know how he agreed to it. Honestly, I just called him. I pick it up and literally, I don't know what it was. We just had some random conversation. I think he was just kind of bitten. And at the end of it all, he goes, man, you know what? Tell you what, he's like, if you're gonna reach out and call me and talk to me and just let me complain to you, let's sign you up. And I was like, oh, really? Well, then it was OD, steel beams. I never again, like I said, I don't know. And I'm like, yeah, I got one. Next thing I know, man, hey, this thing's 70 foot long, right? I'm like, yeah, cool. That's great. Right. You're like, well, your trailer's I was like, oh, I had the hardest time sourcing a flatbed that was able, I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And, so that was my first customer was a big learning experience for me. That was the hardest thing to, I didn't understand that stuff right away. And it was just different because, on the railroad, hell, we just grab a crane, throw it on there, strap it down. Hey, we got it, it's on the road. But, it was hard for me to transition from that mindset to that. But, I think, literally in moving forward, I had to rebuild my book again. Another time when I came over with Kyle and them guys at Synergy. So it's now that I kind of got in the groove of things and I understand, it's a relationship building, and that's the only way you can make this happen. And it's important that you are accountable, that you have transparency, that you're responsible for it, and that you understand, it is your duty at that position. If you're going to put yourself in that position, it's your responsibility to, admit when things go wrong. And you can either have excuses or have results. I'd rather, operate by results.
No, I feel you. How have you, so having to rebuild your book of business, I've had to do that too in my career. What was, because again, it's like you're building it from scratch. How did you find success in doing that? Were you kind of just calling specific shippers? Was it in
a way? Yeah. I think from that first go around, I kind of realized, and again, a lot of times, they'll tell you anybody you do kind of partner up with or whatever, say, hey, what's your niche? What are you passionate about? And they tell you that, what do you feel like you're passionate about? Because when you understand, or you want something, or you love a product, you're more apt to have that passion driven results, so it's I kind of stepped back and thought about, okay, on the railroad, what customers did I enjoy working with the most? And then it led to creating a customer profile. Who do I want to work for?
Yep.
Who am I wanting to work for to help them accomplish their goals? What's important to them at the core of their business? And again, when you're building a carrier relationship, it's I want to work with a guy that, is passionate, who cares, who's accountable, who's not just going to call me with some random, BS story, and vice versa. I want to offer that to him as well, or her. And so, again, I think it just comes back to that adaptability and being able to find where you can provide those solutions, who needs help and what can you do to help them, and don't overpromise. Just know, where you fall in, be honest with yourself. And that's what it is. So I kind of, again, I think I had the ability to be surrounded by guys who've been through it like me and having to restart all over. So I'm able to pull on a lot of resources and a lot of people to help me kind of guide along. And it's done pretty good, man.
No, definitely. I think that if you're out there building a book of business and you're starting over or whatever that is, you need to pick a niche. And I talk about this all the time. Pick a niche and be the best at that niche. There is so much freight that's out there. People have no idea how much freight is truly out there. All of your competition, everybody out there wants easy. Okay. Like if you're building a book of business, everybody wants first come, first serve. Everybody wants 25,000 pound loads. Everybody wants power lanes. So what do you think they're going to call after? You know,
Yeah.
I would say as high as 80% of people out there are literally calling the same things. You know, I'm a big fan of the secondary cities. I'm a massive fan of that. I'm not calling Atlanta, Georgia. I'm going like 60 miles down the road and making it. I'm going to find something out of there. Or, you know, out in, you know, anywhere, you know, Kingman, Arizona, for example, there's a lot of shippers up there. A lot of you guys have no idea where Kingman, Arizona is, but there's a ton of opportunity. And then you find those and then you realize like, hey, you know what? I can actually start moving some freight sooner than what I could with everybody else. Cause everybody's going after those same big names. Everybody wants to say that I work with the Fortune 500 or the Fortune 100 shippers.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that, but you go for that. I want that mom and pop shipper that's moving like 100 truckloads a week. Those are the kind of shippers I want to go after and work with, because at the end of the day, they're going to be, they're underutilized. They're underserved, you know, and if they, you know, and again, it's like, there's not as many hoops to jump through. I think there's a big miss by a lot of people on what it takes to truly land an enterprise shipper. It's not a 1 call close or a 2 call close. It's months of prospecting. And then on top of that, here's a worst kept secret in the industry. You better have a couple $1 million in the bank to give them to run their freight. That's what's needed to work with a lot of these larger shippers. And if you don't have that, it does not matter what you say. You could get to the goal line and they're going to be like, oh, wait, you can't extend us millions and millions of dollars in credit. You're out. You know, they don't make exceptions for that.
No.
You know, so again, it's like, do you want to focus on that and go down that road? You might get lucky. You might land something. I'm never going to say never in this industry, but I would say look long and hard at what you're going after. If you're going after something that you think everybody else is, you know, generally the beverages of the world, the toilet papers of the world, everything, everybody goes after produce and all of that stuff. Again, I'm not knocking on the freight, but if you're having a difficult time breaking in with a lot of these things, look outside of the map. All right. Look on the map, go to some other cities and start calling, like Tulsa, Oklahoma, for example. Call out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. There, nobody's
T-town, baby.
Yeah. You know, so it's like, that's the mentality I would take. And then also when you're getting started off with a new shipper, you're not going to get their gravy freight. All right. You're not going to get their best lane. You're going to get their lowest performing lane with multiple drops potentially. That's going to have shitty appointment times and everything else. And guess what? If you want to earn their business, that's where you need to cut your teeth. And then if you're not prepared to do that, because here's another worst kept secret, at least for me. And if this hasn't happened to you, congratulations, but that's not the fucking reality that I faced in this industry. The first load from a customer I always got had to pick up at like fucking midnight, you know, or else it was a Saturday morning at 3 a.m. was when it's never a first come, first serve, 9 to 5. It was never that, you know? So it's like, prepare yourself for that. But then at the same time, expect that and almost ask for it. Ask for that freight, because that's where they're going to start you off, because you got to look at it like this from a shipper's perspective. These shippers are not in this position because they just throw darts at the wall. These guys are highly educated. They know exactly what they're looking for in a provider. But if they like you enough to give you an opportunity, they're going to start you at the lowest risk freight. They're going to start you at the freight that everybody else is already kind of dropping the ball on. And if they give you a shot and you execute upon it, you're going to look like a fucking all-star to them.
Exactly.
But if you drop the ball, you're out. You know, it's as simple as that. That's what the realities of building a book of business are. That is what you will face.
I think one of the major sayings that kind of stuck with me one time is somebody said, success is like being pregnant. You don't know how many times you got screwed first.
Yeah, that's Dan Pena. He didn't use that non-colorful of language.
No, it was more colorful than that. But but he's right. You know what I mean? Because it's like I don't know how many times I've been in a situation because I also do a few other things. Besides a brokerage, I'm involved with just anything transportation. So I do a lot of consulting. I do a lot of help planning, anything like that. Different types of projects. So like I said, I get optimal thrill by being able to be in position, and I'm blessed, to be able to do this. So what my skill set is, like it's not really chasing after just freight or a truck here, a truck there. My skill set is for the tenure that I've had in my career in the rail industry. And like when I got my black belt in Six Sigma, that's when I became the railroad sensei.
There we go.
So I said, I really want to, again, take that and apply whatever I can, even if it affects the culture of the company, or if it's a mom and pop's, operation. Hell, I want to come in ground level with you and see if I can't help you build this up to what your vision might be. And you might be the next major, beverage company or something like that. But hell, guess who helped you, And so I would rather work with a smaller company and have a better review on myself and my work ethic, and get that respect out of those results any day than working with a major, brand company just to have it on my, just say, hey, I work with so-and-so. Like, so what, like, what did you really contribute? I mean, did you make a change? What kind of impact are you bringing to this industry, to the individuals you're working with? Like what kind of value are you driving? That's where it comes down to.
Exactly. You're just another number in a lot of those cogs. Not in every instance. Again, I'm trying to get better at using blanket statements. I'm trying to get better. All right. I'm working on that, and I will get better at that, but it's true though, and
I got someone that kind of monitors me quite a bit actually these days. She's always like, man, we got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I know.
And I was like, hey, I'm just an old railroader. I'm kind of rough around the edges, and I don't like tacit approval. I'm going to call BS when I see it, so I got to, sometimes I need that filter.
100%. That's the way I was raised. I'm just a blue collar kid from northern Wisconsin.
Yeah, me too. You know what I mean?
I've had a paid job since I was 12 years old. All right.
Same here. I was roofing houses with my uncle, like 12 years old.
I was picking up trash. That was my first paid job, was picking up trash. Paid $5 an hour. I'll never forget it, man. My first paycheck, $95. I was so stoked.
Oh, hell.
Dude, that was money in the bank at that time. But no, so yeah, Kathy Smith, again, dropping some heat in the comments, is brought up another good point that a lot of these big shippers do pay between 90 and 120 days. Moving 200 loads a week and paying carriers within 27 days, you need a lot of cash flow. Yeah. Again, another worst kept secret that's out there. But Kathy, I'm glad you brought that up, because that is another phenomenal point. And those are things, again, it's not saying you can't do that, but those are the things you need to be prepared for in the event that you activate one of these large shippers. And again, the beauty of these large shippers, though, is everything's laid out in front of you. There are no surprises. This is all right in front of you before you sign the contract. So that's good to do that. We got a little bit of time left here, Brian. We got a couple minutes. I want to know what would you change going back year one, being an agent? What would you change?
Well, I really, I wouldn't have such I just kind of have a more expectation, I think, going into it, because again, I was one of those guys that, did a limited research at first and was like, oh, wow, there's a lot of opportunity. I mean, there is a lot of opportunity here, and you see it. Yeah. And you just don't realize, again, how much work it takes. So I think that's what it was. I mean, again, I have a lot of self-confidence, and I know my limitations. I know, I can step out of my comfort zone and keep pushing. Yeah. But I guess I didn't understand, the true cost of what it was going to take to do everything. I mean, that's your time, your money, everything. I mean, you make hard sacrifices, and there's big rewards in it. But again, it's just like, what do you want at the end of the day? What is your main purpose here? Are you here just to make money? Or are you here to, honestly try to help, and make an impact and provide solutions?
I think if you're in this industry to just make money, you're going to have a very hard
You're screwed.
time. You're going to have a very hard time. And I'm sure there's somebody out there who's, well, I'm in it for the money, blah, blah, blah. That doesn't fight. Yeah, whatever.
Well, good for them. I mean, it's good for them. It works for them. Cool.
Yeah, exactly. I think, though, that you literally need to have a love for this job, because this industry will literally chew you up and spit you out. There are so many variables that's out there. But again, like you're talking about, if you want to build a successful book of business, this shit's not 9 to 5. I got plenty of people out there who reach out, hey, I want to do this part-time. I tell them, no, you cannot do this job part-time. You can't make a couple of cold calls a day and think you're going to build a fucking successful book of business. It's just not going to happen. You need to be dedicated to this. This is a 24/7 job. The reality is you're going to work holidays. You're going to work nights. You're going to work weekends. You're not going to take time off. You're going to but again, though, it's like, how bad do you want it? And there's a direct correlation between that and entrepreneurship. If you're looking for a job, if you're looking for something that you want to leave at 5 o'clock and kind of shut everything down, I'm not saying you can't do that, but I'm going to say you're going to have a very difficult time, because this stuff does not end. Your opportunities, again, like I had mentioned earlier, your first shipment is going to come through at about 11 o'clock at night. And it's going to say, I need you to pick this up, and you're going to work all throughout the night. Or you know what, even worse, your tracking software goes out or something happens and you got to work 24/7 to make sure that this production shutdown load delivers on time, and the communications there that's in agreed upon with your shipper and the expectations of that. That is what you will face in this industry. This is not why can't I post a couple of trucks up, find some freight, and make all this money. That's not the reality of it. You have to be dedicated to this industry. And if you're not dedicated to this industry, find something else.
Yeah. Right? I think it all boils down to, ultimately, I created this thing in my mind for this year. I said, man, I'm going to operate on 3D vision, because if you don't sit down and design your goals, that's the first D, just design. If you don't sit down and design your goals, have clarity and have a purpose at the end of the day, like, your intentions and your actions won't line up. And, again, you mentioned dedication. That's the second D. Like, if you're not dedicated, or if you're not disciplined enough to do this on your own, because you don't got someone telling you, hey, wake your ass up, get to work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, my day starts at about 5 a.m. or so, and then it's just go. And next thing I know, it's 7 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
I'm putting in 12, 14 hours sometimes. And it's like, no one's here to make me do that. It's just my passion. And again, the third D would be drive. What drives you at the end of the day is, is it, helping, or like what it is. And that's when you get them three things together, man, them 3Ds, I mean, that's it. And that's the secret to success. And I that's what I've been trying to pass off this year to my guys that I work with directly. I think it's just something that I want to pound into their subconscious to keep that mindset and to keep that passion alive, and just realize, hey, we got a goal at the end of the day. That's to make an impact, and make sure our relationships are maintained, and that way, we can continue on. And I think that's what's important. It's just the relationship at the end of the day is what matters.
No, I'm right there with you. And, it does take 12, 14 hours, a day. Sometimes that's what it's going to take. But, adversely, there are days where you don't have anything going on, and you know what? You can leave a little bit early if you want. I wouldn't recommend it. I think that, if you're building something, you have to be available. I will say this. This is my biggest takeaway in entrepreneurship and starting my company. The best ability anybody will ever have is availability.
Yeah.
Right? That is the best ability you can have, because, somebody else drops off again. Boom. Like when I was, getting out there and putting out content, I remember the first time FreightWaves reached out to me to be on their show. They're like, hey, somebody else canceled. I'm like, I'll be there. Same thing. And then it just builds up from there. Same with the shipper. Hey, this other carrier dropped the ball. Can you do this? Hell yeah, I can do this. Again, that's the best ability that you're going to have. And
absolutely. And you got to be ready to pull the trigger. You got to be able to respond to it. And I think that's the thing. If you get in those positions, don't hesitate. Step out. I mean, if you can, do it. If not, then be honest about that too, though. Don't bullshit your customer. Don't be like, hey, I could do that and not be able to.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. To roll the dice, take risks. Take your risks. But if it's something like that, we'll use this as an example. Brian's 70-foot long steel beam shipment, getting that one for your first one. Maybe if you don't know that one, walk that one back. But
I should have that day, honestly.
Hindsight's always 20/20, Brian. Hindsight's always 20/20. I think that at the end of the day, though, you just got to roll the dice. You got to work for it. You got to, it takes a lot more effort than you think. It's going to take a lot more. It's a lot of heartache. It's a lot of gut wrenching instances when you're getting told no hundreds, if not thousands of times a week, a month, however that looks, however many calls you're putting in, but it's going to be worth it, because most people quit when it gets tough. All right. Most people quit, and most people will quit because everybody searches for comfort, but the rewards that you want are on the other side of that uncomfortable wall. As soon as you bust through that motherfucker, that's when things starts to get fun.
Yeah, see, I don't provide comfort. I provide solutions. That's all you're going to get, either comfort or solutions. And that's what I'm saying. Like that was what was important to me. I'm a solution provider. That's what I want to speak on. So I'm not here to kiss, or to sugarcoat anything and make it seem like it's going to be all roses. I mean, hell, yesterday was my birthday. I still had to work. I mean, hell, I could have taken off. It doesn't, but to me, I was like, I got more important things to do. My passion is to help, my clients and everybody else. So it's just like, it's not, again, if you don't have that dedication, you're not going to make it. If you don't have a client profile that you feel like you can work with, you're not going to build. And that's what, what I mean, is you got to have that foundation. You got to have those morals. You got to have that set of goals. I mean, otherwise you're just not going to make it out here. It is a tough world. It really is.
Absolutely, man. Well, hey, that's it for time. This flew by. 45 minutes flew right past. Make sure you guys reach out to Brian on LinkedIn, connect with him. Again, we're here to build a community to help individuals and help each other out. Railroad Sensei, you can look for him as well on there. He's all out there. Thank you guys all for tuning in. Everybody who's dropping in the comments. I love you guys. I'm so happy that you guys are coming out here and taking the time out of your busy day to come and listen to this guy who just got a microphone out there. Big shout out to my sponsor, BitFreighter. Check them out. Request a load accept demo today. Do me a favor. Let them know that the Freight Coach sent you. That's what keeps the lights on around here. I appreciate you guys all so much, and we'll be talking to you soon.